Hola, bienvenida a todos y a todas al TalkX de hoy con nuestro invitado Brackeen. Welcome everyone to TalkX by Santander. Brian, welcome. How are you today?
Very good. Hola, ¿cómo está?
Okay. Just for the audience, guys, if you have any question, just write them down in the chat and we will have about 10 minutes at the end of the talk to answer your questions. So please feel free to use the chat. Brian, thank you so much for being here today with us. It's going to be a very great talk. You're an entrepreneur, investor, also mentor. So where to start? Maybe if you could just introduce yourself as you want for our audience.
Absolutely. Very, very good to be here. Big fan. Actually, Santander was my first bank as a kid. So very, very cool to share this moment here. So a little bit about me. I'll go back to those kid times. I'm going to go all the way back. So I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but I was born in Ohio. And I had, it was two parents that was kind of like a little early for them. And so I was put up for adoption. And I had Amish foster parents. If you don't know, these are folks in the US that don't use any electricity, any technology in their house at all. So I ended up being an AI person in the end. So I've literally gone the entire length of like from candles at home to AI all in the same life. But a kind of short version of the story, I learned how to code when I was 8 years old, worked at large corporations here in the East Coast of the US. And my really big job was I took a job at Apple just after the iPhone launch and all the way through the iPad launch, a period of really kind of crazy growth. Steve was still there. Tim was in operations. And I learned so much about what I would say is real tech. I was at IBM before that, which I think was my like legacy, and Apple was like kind of like cutting edge. And then I started a facial recognition, artificial intelligence firm called Kairos after Apple. So then we're going to probably go into more details here. Exited that in 2018 and then became an investor.
Okay, thank you. And so maybe we should start with Kairos. You had a job at Apple, at IBM. Why would you want to be an entrepreneur? How everything started?
Well, I think for all of us entrepreneurs in the call, we're all kind of crazy, right?
Sorry, guys. You're part of the team.
Exactly. Welcome to the family. We're all the same. All of our family wonders what got into us. And I think it's the same thing you mentioned. I think for most people, taking a job at like an Apple or an IBM or a General Motors, or you pick the company, right? Or Santander, that's the goal, right? And after you get there, your friends and family go like, why do you want to do something else? Or why do you want to be something else? Why can't, we could all hear our mother saying like, why can't you just take a job like the other kids, you know? But I think there's something in us, and there was certainly something in me that said that I had my own dreams and I had my own visions. And even though I believed in the dream of Steve, and I still believe in Steve Jobs' vision, I had to change the world on my own accord.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how came the precise idea of Kairos and facial recognition?
Yeah. So you know how Elon Musk has this like grand vision, right? He wants to lower the carbon in the world. He's going to start with the Roadster, right? Then more cars, and then charging. Like he had a big idea and then does it piece by piece. I always tell people that I'm the opposite of that. I don't have any of those skills. I think it's amazing. My superpower actually is an iteration. I started with one idea and I iterated it into whatever ultimately became a very good idea. And so the first idea for the company was a time clock. You would use facial recognition to clock in and clock out. Okay. And our customers started asking us, hey, we love your time clock, we love your facial recognition, but can we use your facial recognition to solve this problem or that problem or some other problem in their business? And after enough of these requests, we realized like, isn't this what we really want to do? Like we should just change the company into that. And the company ultimately took off after that. That said, there were some hard points along the way too.
Okay, so actually the value proposition changes also regarding what the client was asking you to
That's
solve.
exactly correct. And that value proposition was more valuable than the original value proposition.
Mhm. Okay, and I think that actually the participants of the program, the explorers, all building their own companies and are doing their MVP of their project.
Mhm.
So, how was the process of your MVP, iterating, talking to your clients, changing the value proposition? How do you build an MVP from scratch? What will be your advice to the explorers at this point of the journey?
I suspect you're hearing some of this already, but it's all about listening. To build a great company, I believe you have to be a really great listener. You have to have a vision, but you have to allow the customers to tune that vision as you grow and as you go along. If you talk to enough customers and if you follow their instruction, also tuning out the noise, I want to add that, you'll be successful. But if you don't talk to enough customers and you just go it alone, your chances of success, while possible, are much lower.
Okay. And how do you do when the product is super, maybe technical, such as facial recognition or something using AI? You may think, okay, but my solution is really tech. So for my consumer to understand what I am doing, I have to do it right and maybe perfectly. So how do you do at the beginning to have just an MVP, but also to test the desire of the customer?
Yeah, Justine, you know exactly what we're talking about. When you're doing a tech business, it's hard to create a differentiated outcome for someone
Mm.
your first day, right? Because there are lots of other products or things or workarounds. And sometimes the workaround for a tech business is a clipboard and a piece of paper, and that works for them, right? And so there's all these competing um, issues. And so what you've got to do is in the beginning, in the very, very beginning, you're selling dreams. That's all. You're just great deck, get a designer, make it beautiful, someone who can show your vision, and you're going to sell that vision to your early investors or your early customers. But I think you're selling the dream.
So you sell the dream, and you also include a revenue model, and you put a price to first test if the customer is okay to pay it, or what do you do?
Yeah, and I think some of this is where there are different regional realities. In the US, we love to not charge. So we're all freemium. Let's just get you on there. Let's get as many customers on. And I know entrepreneurs and investors in different geographies either will or won't take that approach, right? So for instance, I've spent a lot of time in Colombia. They're totally fine with that approach. Other areas like Suriname, right, not right next door, is they want revenue right away. Jamaica, they want
Yeah.
revenue right away, right? So there are some realities that come to play there. But that said, whether you're going freemium or you're charging, if you're charging, to your point, you want to A/B test. You want to really understand. You want to find that right number, and it could take years. But the sooner you start, the faster you'll get to that number. If you're doing the freemium route, you want to just remove all barriers to adoption, make it easy. I can't stress this enough to all the entrepreneurs. Do not, if you take anything from this talk, take this.
Yeah.
Do not let your engineers design your onboarding process. Like under any circumstance, engineers I'm an engineer myself. I love engineers. We are not best placed for human design.
Mhm.
we're, we're just not. And we'll create all kinds of robot checks and email verifications and you'll just lose customers all along the funnel. Make it easy for the customer, and then later introduce some of those security features.
Mhm. Okay. And at the start of your own company, Kairos. So you had the tech profile, let's say, the engineer part. You had also other people in the team, maybe more business profile or all engineers. So it was difficult to sell the dream instead of just doing the engineer stuff. So what was the situation for you?
I was lucky and blessed enough early, having come from Apple, where design
Mm.
kind of leads all thinking, um, to know that I had to have a designer. Our first head of design was and is a wildly talented individual, and he really helped to take my idea and drive it into an actual beautiful, elegant product, and then take our decks and tell and story tell so that I could go out and again sell that dream.
Mm.
So I'll just say to clear that up, it should be the founder, and I believe your first hire is not an engineer, it's a designer, and then you go from there.
Okay. Okay. And if you don't have any desire near, or you don't have, maybe for the explorers here in the audience just starting and maybe just meeting some people to form the team, how should you do to start?
Well, in the beginning, going back to our dream selling, um, you're selling three constituencies, right? You might be selling your own family for friends and family around, or investors, that sort of thing. You might be selling your spouse, right? To let them even try to go off on this crazy dream. So your partner is important. You're selling the early employees. You may not be able to pay them, but if they can
Yeah.
lend you their talents so that you can get to a seed round or a pre-seed round. Um, I think that's critical. And then you're selling the customers. But in the end, you're spending the beginning times of a company selling with no money.
Yeah, selling to everyone, for your team, your customer, your banks,
Yeah,
your investors, everyone should be on board.
everyone,
Yeah.
everyone.
Okay, okay. And just going back to maybe what are leaving the current situation of our explorers, the MVP. Uh, do you know any tools or maybe some platforms easy to use to start something? Do you need, for example, to have a landing page? Landing page is key. You absolutely need to have that, or do you have any other options?
Yeah, landing pages I think important. I think that when people meet you, they're going to want to Google you or find the company, and if there's nothing there, then you lose credibility and it hurts the selling, right, of the dream. So even if it's a landing page, waiting list, newsletter, just start to collect information from people. Also, some of those folks in that newsletter or that waiting list will be helpful a little further down the road. So you got to have something to put up, and that could be from called LaunchRock or other tools, but it even could be a Wix page or a
Yeah.
Squarespace page. No big deal there. So after that, wireframing. I mean, this is like very early. I don't know how early the folks here are, but you just by putting down your idea on paper, and it could literally be paper,
Mm-hmm.
it will help you to think through the flow, the value proposition, the user flow. Um, and again, spend more time on the product. You don't need to wireframe a password reset page,
Yeah.
like just focus on like the value, to your point, Justine, like the value. That's where you should be focusing all your time.
Okay. Okay. And in your case with facial recognition or maybe some other artificial intelligence products, you have to train the algorithm. No, you need a lot of data to actually have something that works very well. So what's the process to get there? You have your MVP, so maybe a landing page. Some people are interesting on the waiting list, and then what should you do to train something so tech?
Yeah, so if you're doing something like AI, there are two things that are critical: the model itself, and then the data that you pour through it. Right, you have to kind of like have this perfect cup that it doesn't leak, right? Then you got to pour the water into it, right, which is like the data. It's great when both those things are proprietary. It'd be great if you have a proprietary model, maybe something you worked on at a university, or you find someone working on something interesting at university. You sell the dream, and then you acquire, right, that IP. And the same is true for the data set. If you can get data that is proprietary, that makes your product more valuable. But if not, that's okay. I will caution to anybody, and it doesn't have to be AI, but in general, intellectual property is critical to this process. And depending on the jurisdiction, so like in the US and the EU, if you were to like say scrape faces from Facebook and create an algorithm with that, the way that it works is the owner of the data also owns the underlying algorithm that's created from that data. So basically you would have created a great facial recognition tool that is now owned by Facebook because you used Facebook's data. So be thoughtful about where that data comes from. And then also on the IP side, and I mean this sincerely as well, do not focus on patents in the first year or two. Okay. Because as you do those pivots, as we talked about, you'll have patented something that you're not even using a couple years later. But you can use things like trade secrets, and you can be secretive about your IP, and you can keep copious notes and show if later someone kind of steals an idea, you can show that you were working on that idea earlier. But it's too early for patents at this stage.
Okay, so you have to wait until you have your stable business model and you're not pivoting to pattern.
Exactly correct.
Okay. I have a tricky question for you, but I don't know. We are always talking about successful stories and how everything is marvelous and you're going forward and it's cool to be an entrepreneur. But the reality is that it's hard. It's very hard. And like you said at the beginning, you have to be a little bit crazy to go on this journey. So maybe can you talk about some challenges and maybe the biggest challenge that you remember in your journey of the creation of Kairos?
Yes, multiple, endless stories of pain, but a couple, I think ones that everybody will go through is you're most likely to run out of money or get low on money at some point in the journey. Like, unless you're independently wealthy, like Justine here, who's obviously, a billionaire, but the rest of us, no. No. Okay.
I would love to say yes, but no.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But for the rest of us, it's going to be, we're at the mercy of either our investors or our customers at all times, right? And so I remember one particularly tough time, and the company, we raised $13 million over our life, but it wasn't 13 million in even installments. It was kind of up and down, very choppy. You went from starving to someone invests $4 million and you're like, oh, we got all this money, and then you're starving again. It's like very up and down. And so I remember one of those down periods just before we were able to raise a little bit of money. And I remember walking into the office and saying to the team, like, we're out of money, right? And that you're going to get paid this Friday, but you're not going to get paid next Friday. And I don't know when you're going to get paid again. And I've failed you as a leader. I've had to tell them that all of them had done everything that I had asked. And it's my job to get the cash necessary to be successful. And I was unable to do that in enough time. And my I'm sorry isn't going to make it easier for those partners we talked about, right? To your bills, to your mortgage company, to your credit card company, right? And so if you have to go, you have to get another job, I understand, we'll always be friends. I will write you a glowing recommendation letter. But if you stay, I know we're on to something big. Like, I know we're almost there. I know that we're going to get this money. Like, if you just give me a little more time and we work together, we can get to where we need to get to. So think about it over the weekend. Whoever comes back on Monday, the rest of us are going to just roll up our sleeves and we're going to go at it. And so after like a long, tearful, really rough weekend, I came back on that Monday and not a single person had left. And
Oh,
I knew that I had to kind of rearrange my life to be in service of those people. Like, I was going to do whatever is necessary to make sure those people were successful, because my success was directly tied to their faith in me.
whoa. Okay. And I guess it was super, like, you should be super happy and so grateful to have all the people on Monday morning believing you in the project.
I was crying.
Yeah,
I
I
was a
bet.
mess. I was a mess.
Oh my God. Okay, okay. And how can you be so resilient? Because we know that one of the strengths of a good entrepreneur is resilience, no? Because you're going up and down, like you were saying, no? And resilience is sometimes not easy for you, not easy to transmit to your team. So how did you do that? How to be resilient during the whole journey?
Yeah, I think you want to hire for resilience, first of all. Also, if someone is not, if someone working in a corporate environment only their entire career and the check automatically comes every week, that kind of thing, they're going to struggle in an entrepreneurial environment.
Yeah.
Also, the needs of the business change every day. And so we're always kind of moving and pivoting in a way that isn't true for a corporate environment. And so you got to hire people that can be resilient, to the first part of your question. But even after that, I think really strong communication is important. You've got to just share with people, not just where the vision is, but where we are, how we're going to get there, and each pivot. If you communicate or over communicate with the team and your investors and your customers, you can only be successful.
And you always have been transparent and with your team about also financial problems and issues about everything. It's better to be fully transparent and communicative.
Absolutely. Because sometimes the solutions to your problems will also come from the team.
Yeah,
So just, it's always better to share.
that's right. Okay. So, guys, communication, to share your vision, to be resilient. Look like those skills are really important to be a good entrepreneur. Do you have other skills in mind that for you are have to be there to be a good entrepreneur?
You got to be able to manage your emotions,
Okay.
because there's so many highs and so many lows. You got to try to stay as even as possible. Certainly celebrate the wins and learn from the losses, but
Mm.
don't dwell on them.
Okay. Okay. And also, you were saying that at the beginning you are pivoting and you have to adapt and adjust with the up and downs. When do you know that you have to maybe leave an idea and change it, or when do you have to continue and be resilient and it's going to work? Where is the limit?
This is the hardest question, because you don't know.
Yeah,
You don't know.
for so many years sometimes.
Sometimes you're working, you're almost there, and just need a little bit further.
Mm,
But sometimes you're going the wrong direction.
yeah.
It's hard to tell the difference. All I can say is only you will know. You're not going to get that answer from the internet or Twitter. It'll come from here.
Mm. And before Kairos, or maybe during the journey, or maybe after? Did you have another idea of a company and it was a wrong idea, or no?
No, I'm blessed to have had.
Kairos was the first
Yeah, I've
and it
only had
was the
one.
good one.
Yeah, and that was it.
Okay.
I was just lucky, I suppose. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. Um, Also, something that we hear a lot as an entrepreneur is you have to find your why you are doing that, why you're doing your company. And you start also saying you have to have a vision and share your vision. So, what is your why?
So my why is evolving. So now I'm an investor, and I realize, similar to my time as an entrepreneur, there's all about the people, but now the people are the founders that I invest in.
Hmm.
So serving them and helping them to live their dream, I take great personal pleasure. And I think my why is to help people to live their dream.
Yeah, it's a good why. It's beautiful, actually. And I saw that Lightship Capital is really involved in the fight for diversity in entrepreneurial world, in investing world also. So maybe I don't know, the fight for diversity in these ecosystems are something in common with all your activities, also as a mentor in different organizations. So is it also part of your why, or I don't
I
know,
would say so.
diversity is very important for you?
Yeah, I would say so. When I talked about raising $13 million, and that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. Um, but to get to 13 million, I pitched about 1,000 times the company.
Oof.
I had 120 investors, and I had 880 no's. Now, for a perfectly investable idea, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
if you think about the sheer math of that, I led the company for about 8 years, right? It's about 100 no's a year on average, which is about a no every 3 days. And so, yeah, I wanted to I want to change investment so that women and minorities aren't getting so many no's. I want to be somebody's yes, right?
Mhm.
Because I had so many no's. And I think it's important. And I think that we get more no's than we deserve. Um,
Yeah.
Less than 2% of venture capital goes to a woman. Women are 50% of all humans, right? Right? It just the numbers,
Unbalanced, maybe.
numbers
Yeah.
and it's not because the ideas aren't there, the smarts aren't there, none of those things. It's only about the people that are making the investments are men. They sometimes can't see the empathy for women's ideas. I'll just give a quick example. Um, One of our best investments is a company called Prove. Um, Dr. Amy Beckley, who's the founder and CEO, she had 7 miscarriages. And if you understand anything about that, or the crowd, one miscarriage for a woman is a terribly devastating thing.
Yeah.
Right? To have 7 is unfathomable. Um, and she said, I've had enough of this. I'm a scientist. I'm going to go in my basement and I'm going to solve the problem. She did all this research, and she found out the impact that progesterone has on not just getting pregnant, but staying pregnant and carrying the baby to term. And prior to her product, it was only tested here and there during a woman's life via a blood test. So it would only tell you a woman's progesterone level in that moment, but not as they go up and down, right, over time. And so she created in her basement the world's first urine test for progesterone that women could take at home.
The Silicon Valley way, no? The garage.
Very much,
The
very much.
basement.
In her case, the Denver, Colorado way. But yes. And so she got her FDA
Amazing.
clearance, which is our medical clearance in the US, in her basement, right? Then she patented the product in her basement. Then she put $200,000. She sold $200,000 worth of kits. They were just plastic bags of this product out of her basement.
We go back to the MVP stage.
Very.
Such a good such a good example.
Yeah, plastic Ziploc bags in the mail.
Okay, why not?
True MVP.
Yeah.
And so she accomplishes all these things. In fact, the legal name for the company is called MFB Fertility, which actually stands for My Fucking Basement. Like that's literally.
I love it.
She's like really hardcore. So she does all this stuff. She goes to the JP Morgan Biotech Showcase in San Francisco, to your point. And there's a room of about 80 investors. 79 men, 1 woman. And talks about her success. And then she says, anybody wants to talk to me about investing, I'm going to stand over here. Not a single one of the men went over to talk to her about her invention, except for my wife, Candace, who was the only woman in the room.
Wow.
We became her first investor. We put her through our accelerator. We've invested multiple times. We've invested as a fund.
Yeah.
She is our best performing investment. The company now is worth tens of millions of dollars. And it has helped thousands and thousands of women to have children. We call them proof babies all over the world. And so that product would not exist where there are 100 men in that room instead of, or 80 men in the room instead of 79, right? So we need more diverse investors, more women investors. We need more investors that understand these communities so that we can support all of us.
And do you think that we are going in the right direction and that everything is moving? Maybe with the hashtag #MeToo, we are seeing also only women incubators, women funds, also for Black people or other diversity themes. Do you think we are moving or it's too slow? What's your opinion?
We're definitely moving. We're a few decades behind. Morgan Stanley did a report that showed that the lack of investment in women and minorities creates a $14 trillion hole in the US economy alone, not even the global economy.
It's huge.
So if we were to, so even with all the work and all the new funds and all, that might be globally, might be $500 million, right? So we have 13.5 more to go before we get to equity.
And we have to. And thank you for all your work in your fund for that.
Thank you.
Maybe just before taking the questions in the chat, my last question will be, as an investor, if you have to give 2 or 3 top tips to go to an investor and pitch it the right way, and maybe 2 or 3 don'ts or no-goes, what would it be?
Well, top tip and a no-go together is meet the investor where they are. So in our case, we accept investment requests on our website. It literally says on my social media, like, only pitch me via our website, because we want to see we're trying to eliminate bias. So it's not about whether you know me or not. It's about everyone coming in the same door and giving everybody the same treatment, right? So we're really thoughtful about that. Okay. But even though we talk about that openly, people still try to come my DMs, or I got a text at 2:30 in the morning the other day about a company in a deck. Like, it's just for a company I didn't know. It's just, so just meet the investor where they are. Okay. 1. 2, research the investor and the thesis. So we invest in almost everyone, but you're like a straight white male. So we invest in LGBT, women, minorities, you name it, right? Immigrants, everyone. But if you're kind of a straight white male in New York or San Francisco, you have so many options. Yeah. You don't need our little fund. You can go to lots of other people. And I still get a lot of applications from straight white men in New York and San Francisco. So
trying. Poor guys.
Poor guys. I feel bad for them. So yeah, understand the thesis of the farm, and then you'll know not to waste your time. I think that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very important.
I
Yeah,
get it.
that's it. So we're ready for questions. You're ready for questions.
Okay. So ready for questions. We have our first one. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, sound good.
Like it's freezing. Okay. So the first one from Anton Naranjo. Could you explain a little bit more about how to find the right people for your team at the very beginning of any project?
Good question. Meetups, very important. Find a meetup in your space and go to all of them. Introductions, and then online. Think of it like things like online groups is almost like Tinder for employees, right? You want to find people online. You want to like make sure you meet them there, make friends, go for coffee, in person or virtual.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you. The second question is from John Fetz. What do you think is essential to have on your landing page?
Mm, your why. That's the most essential thing, because your why will tell them, is this something that I want or I want to support? So your why, a sign up, waiting list, or newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe if I can add something on this question, do you already have to have your logo and brand perfectly defined, or is something that you can develop after?
It can develop after, but it should be attractive. So, and the imagery should support what you're doing, but it doesn't have to
Okay.
be your image. It gives you an image of the people you're going to help or support
Yeah.
or the future you want to create. But yeah, there should be something that supports the why.
Okay. Maybe not the last version, but something that tell people. Okay.
Something. I was gonna say, if you have a name, just use the name in a great font. You don't even need a logo. Just the name in the great font, image, why, sign up.
Okay. Very clear. Another question is from Aurora. Brian, what would you say to young entrepreneurs who are afraid to invest money in their ideas?
I'm afraid too. We're all afraid. I would say that one, overcoming your fears in this area is worth the money. If you could pay to have a stronger control over your future, would you? And even if the money goes away, you have paid for that because you have learned that skill, even in failure. And that's priceless. So think of the money as the early money as just almost like a gym membership. Like it's the way to get your like entrepreneurial kind of muscles going.
Okay, okay. And do you think that you have to go and talk to investors at the very, very beginning to kind of try the idea and the interest, or wait a little bit?
I would only talk to customers for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
First customer, not directly investors.
We don't know anything. Investors are dumb. You should do your own thing. Only the customer knows.
Okay. Another question from Mirada Crónica. Besides funds, what do you expect from an investor?
Marriage, partnership. You're literally partners in the future. And so I would ask my investors, how do you think about partnership? I would also remember this. When you're selling equity to investors, you're literally taking money from your current or future children, right? Because the money's going to come from your windfall, and it's going to go to guys like me and girls like me. So that's still worth it in the beginning, possibly, but make sure that person is going to work for it, that they are worth it. Like, is this a person that I would want to take possibly $1 million or millions of dollars from my kids and give them to this person? And on my side, I've got to show that much value every single day for my founders.
Okay. And at the beginning, what's the rhythm or what's the timing to talk to your investors. You can ask for advice every week, or you have a call every month. How
Before
do
they
you?
invest, as little as possible.
Okay.
After they invest, as often as possible.
Pretty clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another question from Sebastian. Do you have any suggestions for B2B business trying to validate hypotheses aside from surveys? Beside from surveys.
Well, I don't love surveys either, but I do love, even if it's just wireframes, having outside people sit at a table with your wireframes and ask them what they think, or even how does the images on each page make them feel?
Okay.
That's actually even more interesting. And it could be a B2B or B2C. The consumer is always a human at the end of the day. Even when you're a B2B, you're still selling to humans. So you want to understand how humans are interacting with your product.
Okay. And you should go to a potential client, or maybe like a small one, to not burn your cards. I don't know if you, you can say it in English, but but
Yes.
if you have a perfect future client, maybe you want to talk to them after, when you have everything ready, or should you go?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So both are correct. So in one scenario, you don't want to, we would say, burn your bridges, burn your cards.
Burn
Yeah,
your bridges.
right,
Okay.
right. um, Too soon, because you may want to save those conversations for
Mm.
later when you have something. But by doing that, you might build the wrong thing because you're talking to the wrong customer, right? And you never end up building the right thing for the right customer because you never talk to them about what they need. So you've got to kind of like balance those two things out.
Mm. Okay. Um, we have a question from Irene. Brian, could you share some advice on the regulations that need to be done regarding the database in AI and the legal issues related to user privacy?
Yes. Do you know what country he's from or state?
No, we don't know. Maybe just give
I'll
us
give
some
I'll give
seconds. Irene 01. Si nos pueden decir su país. No, we don't know.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's perfecto. Sí, sí. So I live in Miami now, guy. That's why I have some Spanish. But to generalize answer for the world is this. The most sophisticated rules in this area are in the EU, Canada, Texas, and Illinois. Those areas have.
It's from Mexico.
Excellent.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, in those places you have to be the most careful. Everywhere else, including Mexico, has very limited laws in the AI space, also in the privacy space. Some countries do lend themselves to U.S. federal law, and in Mexico sometimes included. Some of our free trade agreements between Mexico and the U.S., including the one that was just recently done during the Trump administration, we lend each other grace on the AI areas, which means because there are no federal laws in that area in the US and very few, if any, in Mexico, there, unfortunately, for better or for worse, are very few limitations on you.
Okay. Thank you. Just to finish, maybe the two last question. One is, would you suggest to use videos instead of a landing page?
Love video if it's not too much. Not like, just more like motion graphics, I would say, not actual like videos.
Okay. Okay. And the last question would be, are you interested in biotech projects? And also, how scalable do you see the health tech segment in the coming years?
Yeah, we invest in healthcare, health tech. We don't do as much biotech, but we do have firms that we work with that are looking for biotech to invest in, and even globally. So happy to help anybody. My Twitter is here. So at Brian Brackeen. Tweet at me. I'll get you an answer or connect you with somebody that can help. And the future is bright. Healthcare not going anywhere. Big broken system.
Yeah.
We're big fans of that space.
Okay. Okay. Actually, I have a last one, maybe about resilience to finish. What was your strategy to resist to so many no's? And what was your way to start fresh and do it again?
Keep smiling, keep laughing. That's really important. Know that you know best where the company's going and what your dream is. And it doesn't matter if someone tells you no, because it's all here, right?
Mm.
And as long as you believe in yourself, then anything is possible in your life, which goes back to the, should I be afraid of spending early money? When you start to learn that and feel that in yourself, there's so much value in knowing that. I believe in my heart of hearts that I could create anything that people would love, because I've learned that skill in creating Kairos, and I would pay millions of dollars for that belief.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brian. So it's so inspiring. We're gonna have to finish this live on Twitch, and we're gonna switch to the private chat with the selected explorers. Thank you, Brian, and bye
Bye to the
bye.
group. Yep. See the rest
Bye,
of you guys soon.
guys.
Ciao.